Yeah, I'm really passionate about trying to disrupt education for the next generation using new technologies to enable that. I've been in the field for about 7 years now, and the first project that I invested in was actually XRP. In terms of Uppercent, the way I always try to explain it is it's a platform where you can learn from the top 1% of achievers. So the idea here is to learn from people that have kind of been there and done it and really get access to their whole experience rather than just buying the course. Say, for example, for £300-400, you buy an access pass to the course, which is an NFT, which enables you to resell it after you finish. So we're kind of inadvertently creating the world's first secondary market for online education. E-learning is a 200 billion a year industry, rising to 600 billion a year by 2030. Zero secondary market. So there's the opportunity there to bring that into e-learning and Web3.
Now it's so exciting what's going on in Web3. And when I met Jake and he was looking at like how we revolutionize education, and having been in it, and also I've been in the sort of startups now for about 10 years as well, the overlap of all of these things, suddenly I thought, wow, this is really, really cool. And I get pitched ideas every day. Probably every week there's maybe like 40 different ideas I get pitched. And when I spoke to Jake and we first started talking about this, it was one of the first times in a long time that I've been like, wow, this is really, really cool.
The following conversation is with Jake Lee and Mark McLean. They tell us how Uppercent is going to be built on Flare and how this creative use case on blockchain is going to change online education. Today, they celebrated their 1,000th user. Congratulations. Okay, do enjoy.
So I guess it's not just about the kind of being able to create a secondary market for education, but it's also how do you get all the best bits of the Web3 and move that into an education system, which I think is fundamentally broken. I actually now finally have an answer to how we can actually improve this. There's also a huge amount of research in neuroscience now that's really backed up by great data, and the tech that's been able to that's been invented over even in the last 5 years. It's just incredible. And so I guess we don't want to just create like an online course. I think, Jake, you're much better at the kind of numbers. Please tell me how many people actually complete these like online courses, please. I'm sorry to hand that one to you, but you're much better at remembering these numbers than I am.
Yeah, that's right. So 3.13% in a recent study was shown that's the number of people that complete courses on platforms called MOOCs. Which stands for Massive Open Online Courses, so the likes of Udemy, for example. So a really, really low statistic, and a lot of the research around this is showing that it's due to a lack of engagement, a lack of motivation, and a lack of quality.
So low.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was 50%, that's a huge shame, right? But it's not. We'll use it 3. Did you say 3.13?
Yeah, 3.13% is
yeah. And so the point is, even if it was 10%, you know, people finishing, that would be really such a shame. But that kind of level, and I think for me, so it's sitting with students and seeing the engagement and trying to find ways of getting them engaged. So I've also, I mean, I've done lots of random things. I've also been involved in the film industry and things like that as well. And I see that the education industry could really benefit from many different things. And one of those is the Web3, but the other thing is storytelling and engagement. So why is it that someone sits there and will watch an entire Netflix series from start to finish? But, you know, and that's not massively beneficial to their life, but it's fun. But if we could somehow take even a small sliver of that and turn that into, or bring that to education, I think that's when it suddenly starts to become really, really exciting. And I guess that's what we have had an opportunity to do, to actually start from the beginning, which I think is actually a really lucky place. Because I understand if you're the education minister in a country, you're sort of trying to change a system that's been in place for, you know, sort of decades, if not hundreds of years. And, you know, the education system was primarily sort of designed to create great office workers, or before that, great factory workers. You know, they would sort of do what they were told, you know, and that's what we did in school. You know, I certainly know that in my school, which was pretty strict, you would just do what you're told, don't question this, don't even think, you know, what's the benefit to my life? You're not allowed to ask that, Mark. Go to Saturday detention. You know, it's sort of a, and so we're in a really fortunate position where we can actually say, well, okay, look, if we just started from scratch, what actually works? Can we make this interesting? So instead of just having an online course, we want to create essentially a learning experience. I'm sure we'll come up with a really good, I actually lie awake at night trying to work out what we're, you know, what the names are. I'd come up with this sort of computer enhanced learning experience, cells, you know, all these different names. But I think the point is, whatever you brand it, it really has to be something that is really exciting for people to engage with. So it also has to use lots of things that are backed up by neuroscience. For example, space learning. So if you learn something on one day, your brain will go, okay, that's interesting. But eventually, if it's not used again, the brain will just forget it. So there are techniques like space learning where you learn something on a particular day and then you leave it for a few days until the brain starts to forget and then relearn it again. And what that does is it communicates to your brain. Neuroscience is telling us that, oh, wait a second, this must be important. And so I use the analogy a lot of the time that if for example, you were bitten by a snake, you don't have to relearn that all the time. You would remember that. If I asked you what color was that snake, you know, in 10 years time, you'd be like, it was blue or whatever color it was, because that's important for our survival. But the problem is a lot of the stuff we're learning, the brain doesn't think it's important for the survival. So we almost have to trick it into learning. Now, again, I'm not going to give you this whole lecture about how learning works, but this is the kind of stuff that I'm really fascinated by. And a lot of other educators are too. And so being able to kind of collaborate with such an incredible team to think, how can we make a great learning experience for people? How is it interesting? How is it actually going to help people learn? How are we going to, I guess, help people spread that knowledge too? Because one really, really powerful way of learning is through teaching as well. If you teach something, you really have to understand it. And so it's kind of all of this. And then how can we use elements of Web3? I mean, so for example, again, I don't want to go on too much about it, but there are sort of, you know, I mean, there are different agreements on this. Some people say there are sort of 3 types of learning. I've heard that there, you know, that there are 10 types of learning. I kind of settle around the sort of 7 different types of learning, you know, and so those are sort of auditory, visual, but also parts of that is it's essential to have some solitary learning that's done on your own, but also, if not as important, if not, sorry, I was going to say as important, but if not even way more important, is learning together with other people. Mm-hmm. And so creating an environment where people can kind of learn together is really, really important. Well, how do you do that if they're on their own, you know, sitting at home? Well, Web3, I mean, Web2 is already not bad at this, by the way, but I think that what we're seeing now, and again, your channel is something that I've really sort of seen from, you know, hearing you talk about this stuff. This is exactly what Web3 is amazing for. So again, I'm sorry for going on about it, but I guess what I wanted to convey to you is my passion, certainly, and how I've seen that the rest of this, you know, that the whole of this setup and Jake's passion, it's been able to kind of come together to create something that's really, really exciting.
I'll just quickly add to that as well in terms of the types of courses that we're looking to build and the skills that we're hoping people develop. So I'm really fixated on courses that teach high valued skills that are relevant. So things that aren't traditionally covered in normal education is probably the best way to put it. So for example, we've got a potential upcoming course at the moment with one of the fastest growing TikTok creators, and he's nearly at 10 million followers. 12 months ago, he was a cleaner. So the idea that he's managed to kind of change his whole life and become this guy who's got over 4 billion views is crazy. And that to me is a high valued skill that you cannot learn in any other form of education. And you can learn it on maybe watching on YouTube and things like this, but you're never going to learn from someone who's kind of been there and done it, as you know, as Dylan has, the creator. So that's one example of like a high valued relevant skill. Other things as well, such as what we're in, right? Web3, other emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. These subjects are super important to our futures, and the traditional education system isn't going to be able to adapt quick enough to start teaching people about this specific knowledge. So I see that a future where traditional education kind of gives like a foundation. It teaches us how to read, how to write, develop, really kind of foundational skills. But to learn specific skills about specific things, we're going to have to do it online. And the reason why is because the job market is changing so much. There's already a 90% skills gap being reported by businesses, that as emergence of technologies like AI continue, that's going to become further and further, and the demand from the job market is going to be for skills that aren't being taught in traditional education because it cannot move quick enough. And that's really what we want to be teaching on our platform.
The other problem you've got is that a lot of there is this sort of expression, those who can't teach. So the people who you're not necessarily, now, by the way, that's not always true, because there are some amazing people who decide to go on and teach later on in their lives, and they're incredible teachers. But a lot of the teachers who, so for example, I went to film school for a while, they weren't necessarily the best people in the film industry. Not to say they weren't incredible teachers. I had some really good teachers, which is wonderful. I was very lucky, but it was luck more than anything. But if, for example, Steven Spielberg doesn't really have a huge amount of time to teach, and that's one of the big things that we found, is that when we were sort of designing this whole thing, these learning experiences, is, well, the best people often don't have time. So that's another thing that we've essentially tried to take on, is to say to those people, hey, listen, by the way, do you want to teach? Do you want to share your skills? And most of them really, really do. The people who are very successful often tend to have a sort of an abundance mindset, the idea that they don't want to keep it all to themselves. They want to share. They really do, but they just don't have time to. So one of the things that we set about right from the start was, well, we will do all the heavy lifting for you, basically. So we will make sure it's filmed really high quality. We'll make sure that the audio is really good. We'll make sure that it really is structured into an environment. We'll build the space learning. We're actually using elements of AI. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to I think it's absolutely fine. Huge amounts of it to in terms of kind of, in but not in a way that most people would think, in some really, really cool ways. And the point is that these creators, a lot of these people who we speak to are like, oh, I'm so busy. They go, yeah, I could do that. I could commit to that. I could definitely commit to that. And actually the excitement from them is really fantastic. I mean, that's one of the things that I think has been so exciting for us, is that these people who wouldn't normally be able to teach, wouldn't have the time, because they're actually doing it, now have an opportunity to, and get to share what they love and what they're so passionate about.
There will be individual access passes, NFTs, that unlock that content, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But in terms of being a general member, there's lots of different benefits, basically. So you can get access to daily learnings, free courses, Uppy, who's our personal AI learning tutor on the platform, learn to earn challenges, and the community, Web3 sense of community, which is why we wanted to make it membership based. And at the moment, people can come on, they can apply for free, and we can grant them access to Uppercent if their application is accepted. So it's trying to create that community of people that are trying to become part of the upper percent of achievers.
And we're kind of in, as just Jake was sort of saying, we're in this in-between stage of Web 2 and Web 3. Web 3 is exactly where we want to be, and it's where the world is heading. But we're still, still a lot of people with this sort of Web 2 mindset, basically. And so us trying to find this balance of two. So I think it's, we're super fortunate to be surrounded by so many wonderful evolving companies, but also some legacy companies as well, where we can kind of all learn and share together, which is incredible.
Absolutely. Synergy that happens when you are around the people who are in a similar situation, forging a new path in a world that's going to take many steps to get to Web3. It's not just one big leap, it's many little steps all the way. And I also think that everybody's in that sharing mode still, because we're all trying to achieve adoption. And so I think everybody has that at its core, and that's really healthy, and it's nice to see, and it's fun to be in this space for that reason.
What we are doing with, say, for example, in regards to wallets, is when someone kind of signs up for an account with us, this is something we're implementing at the moment, which will go live very shortly. They have the option to connect a wallet. So you connect an existing wallet, or you can say, I don't have a wallet. And then automatically in the background, a wallet is created for you and connected to your Uppercent account. So if you're someone who's in Web 2, you haven't had to copy a seed phrase. You haven't had to do anything complicated. You've literally just had to say, I don't have a wallet. Now, in their Uppercent account, they can go and access all the details of their wallet because it's self-custody. So if they do want to go and access that wallet, then they can. So yeah, that's something that we're doing to try and achieve that Web 2.5, so i.e. Web 2 users being able to use a Web 3 solution. And yeah, again, the other aspect of Web 2.5 definitely comes down to payments and payment systems, and being able to enable someone to be able to, purchase one of our access passes if they want to with their debit card and their credit card. There's so many different stages of Web 2.5 that we're working with Flare on. And we're trying to kind of build, not just to benefit us, but to also benefit the wider Flare ecosystem, right? Because if we can kind of get the foundations in place to enable Web 2.5 solutions, then new builders coming to Flare can also use the foundations that we've managed to kind of help get in place, if that makes sense. Why Flare were a great choice for us is because they believe so heavily in creating that bridge between Web 2 and Web 3, and having a partner that understands that is like the core of being able to onboard the next 100 million users into Web 3 was really, really important to us. And again, to e-learning as well, because it's a slow moving industry. So being able to create something that everyone can use, but underlying technology is Web 3 so people can access more benefits, super, super important. So yeah, and I think aside from that, in terms of why we chose Flare, I'd always talk about interoperability and the state connector, which will allow us to receive data from other blockchains, for example, which can open opportunities for us as a business as we want to build our service out. And also, I'd always say Flare being an EVM layer 1 makes life so much easier. So much easier. And anyone in the technical realm will understand why that is. But again, just that fact will enable us to build scalable smart contracts, which are the bedrock of the access passes that we're creating. So I think that's super important for us, because that's really like our main use of Web3 is kind of digital ownership. So yeah, and I'd probably say the last thing I'd mention is definitely the Flare community as well. I've been in Web3 for a while now, as I mentioned at the start, and Flare have a very, very strong community, and obviously neighboring with XRP as well, both tremendous communities that are looking to build and innovate, and they've received our idea really, really well. Having a community of people that understand why you're trying to build what you're trying to build is super important for us to get feedback and to build our product to the best it can be. Because like I mentioned, we're very early in our journey and we're trying to build what we can and do the best job that we can do. And having that support from a great community is super helpful.
We would want to keep track of what you're doing. How do we do that?
So Twitter, of course, at Uppercent_. So yeah, that's our Twitter. We try and put everything out on there, and Discord as well. So we obviously have a Discord community. So very Web3 centric from both of those points of view. And yeah, we're constantly putting updates out and posting every single day. So if anyone is interested in our journey, then please, we'd love to have you and come and join us. And I think the third thing is becoming a member. We mentioned earlier on that you can apply to become a member now for free if your application is accepted. So you can come and start accessing some of the kind of products that we've already put out on our platform. And yeah, with the other thing is our first kind of course, or what we like to call learning experience, is going to be coming out very soon. We're building every day, and we're trying to share that as much as possible. We've got some cool things coming up.
Actually join and become a member. It is free, but come and join us and get on the Discord, that kind of thing, because there are some incredible minds out there, right? Like amazing people who are going to have ideas that are going to help us make this even better. And if they have invested and they want it to be better, well, come. If you've got ideas and you want to share them, just come and do it. Like, we're so excited to hear from you guys. And we've already been hearing, and, even the people who are kind of that we're partnering up to make courses with have ideas. you know, and that's so exciting. So yeah, I definitely would double up and say, become a member, come and join the stuff, and come and share your ideas with us, because honestly, that is absolutely what the power of Web3 is. It's no longer just broadcasting information. It is this backwards and forwards that is absolutely not just going to make what we're doing better, but actually make the whole Web3 community better. And I hope will make the world better. And I think that's why a lot of us are here. This isn't just like, oh, how can we make this blockchain a little bit more efficient? No, this is literally about changing the world. And, you know, and the truth is that, you know, many people say this to me all the time, that the most important job in the world is the teachers, because they're the people who inspire us to do the things. And it's also the thing that's often underinvested in and not treated with much respect. Well, how can we build an education system together that makes us all better and all stronger? I think that's where it suddenly becomes really exciting. So yes, please come and join us and become members, and come and share with us in this journey.
I can tell you're very customer centric, and I think you are absolutely, the passion is just overflowing. So that's great, and keep it up and keep building. And I look forward to following your progress. Thank you for coming on the channel tonight.
Thank you very much.
Eri.
Bye-bye.